Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. It is me, the Sassy Blonde Writer, here to talk to you about different types of story structure. Different stories must be told in different ways. Today I'm going to tell you about different ones that you can use and where they are most common. This is by no means an exhaustive list because there are a lot of different types of story structures, and honestly they're evolving, creating new ones and new story structures and narrative structures every single day. All story structures have the following elements in common. You have this inciting incident, character growth, plot twist or midpoint reversal, rising action or build-up, climax or confrontation, falling action, resolution. That would be the ending. Each story structure that I'm about to go over includes all of those elements. What makes them unique is how much time they spend in each part. Think of your story like a piece of pie. End of the day, you're going to have a story, you're going to have a slice of pie. The structure is just different ways you can slice it. If you are a planner, this video is going to help you figure out how you want to structure the plot of your book because, like I said, different stories have to be told in different ways. You're not going to unfold a mystery the same way you would a romantic comedy. If you are a pantser, keep these in mind as story beats as you write. This will help you when you get to the editing process, make it sure that your story flows all together, you don't have a lot of rambling or pointless scenes in your story. If you are editing, this will also help you because you can figure out what you need to add or to cut. It's time to talk about the 3-act structure, probably one of the most popular to talk about. This formula was used by the ancient Greeks and is one of Hollywood's favorite ways to tell a story, so you've probably heard about it a lot. I know it's very common, especially with a lot of authortubers. So I'm going to quickly go through it.
Alright, so now let's do our little overview of 3-act structure, also known as Save the Cat. Now, why am I lumping these two things together? Okay, so technically Save the Cat is a type of beat structure that is similar to but distinct from 3-act structure. Technically. It's like how a square is a type of rectangle, but not all rectangles are squares. So, Save the Cat is a type of 3-act structure, but not all 3-act structures follow the same beats as Save the Cat. So bear with me on. Most of the time, the beats outlined in Save the Cat are applied to screenplay writing, but they're extremely popular to use on AuthorTube for writing novels, which is why we are here. So when I talk about it, just take it with a grain of salt, and I will be talking about it within the context of 3-act structure. And I am going to be relating it all back to those essential story elements that I talked about in my first video in this little series. So if you need a refresher, you can always go back to the recap, or you can just check that video out for a little bit more in-depth overview of that. So without further ado, let's talk about 3-act structure. So Act 1 is setup and debate, or you can just call it setup for short. So this is the introduction to the characters plus any of the information that the reader is going to need as the context for the upcoming events. So this is going to have what's called in Save the Cat as your opening image and your theme stated. That's just your setup. And you're going to have your catalyst and your debate, which is also known as your inciting incident. And you're going to start having your rising action, aka the build-up. So obviously you're going to have your inciting moment in this, which is going to establish your narrative tension and is going to spur the protagonist into action. So here they make a specific point to discuss the catalyst for what changes the story and the debate on whether or not the protagonist is going to do something about it, if they're going to be active or reactive in the story, and that's going to relate back to the theme that was stated in the opening image. Then Act 3 comes along, which is your rising action leading up to your confrontation. I didn't name it because, believe it or not, the confrontation doesn't officially happen in Act 2. Go figure there. So this act sees the protagonist facing conflict to resolve the situation that was created by the inciting incident. Each time they appear to have found a solution, they are faced with more intense problems. So this can be split into kind of two pieces. We're going to call them Act 2A, which is your fun and games. That's when your B story is introduced. And your midpoint comes along, also known as your midpoint reversal. And then you're going to have Act 2B, which is going to be when your antagonist or the bad guys start closing in and all seems lost. So again, this is still all part of the rising action, right? Because the rising action is the longest part of the book. So this is all still build up to the confrontation, the big kahuna, the climax, right? So we're still building up. So all seems lost, still part of the rising action. And then you're going to have the dark night of the soul. Man, does that sound angsty. So I put in parentheses, this is character growth because it just kind of seems like that's what it is. Yeah. So you can also refer to this part as the fun and games section, I suppose, if that is what it seems like to you. Then your third act is going to come along, and that is your finale or your resolution, which is going to be when your falling action occurs and your resolution. Duh. So this act sees the resolution of the inciting moment or the inciting incident and ties up any loose ends that have been unraveled, usually involving the B plot or C plot if you chose to do that as well. So this is a mixture of the climax and the resolution from the 5-act structure, if you watched the video on that, which you totally should because it's awesome. So in context of Save the Cat, this is where you have the gathering of the team, which is still a part of the rising action. You have the executing of the plan, again, still part of the rising action. Then you have the high tower surprise, which I consider part of the climax or confrontation. Then you have the dig deep down, which you could consider part of the climax or confrontation or part of the falling action. Personally, I consider it part of the falling action, but you know, literature is an art, not a science, so if you have a difference of opinion, that's totally fine by me. Then you have execution of the new plan, which again could be considered the climax or the falling action or part of the resolution, whatever you feel it is. And then you have the final image, which of course is the finale and the resolution. And then that's the end of 3-act structure.
If you've heard of Save the Cat story beats, it follows this basic structure. I'll link to a Save the Cat worksheet down below. It's also known as 15-point structure, aka the Blake Schneider beat sheet. This is specifically for screenwriting, but as always, a story is a story. So this is Save the Cat, which is also known as 15-point structure, also known as 3-act structure. Act 1, you have the setup. That's when you introduce your main characters. You establish the setting. You have your hook. You have your reason why the reader cares, and then you have the inciting incident and then you deal with how your main character and their merry band of friends deal with this inciting incident. Your inciting incident is going to be the game changer. Why are things no longer normal? Act 2 is the confrontation. That's when you create a problem that appears small on the surface but becomes more complex. The more your protagonist tries to get what he or she wants, the more impossible it seems to solve the problem. Then Act 3, you have the resolution. A good ending, a good resolution will have high stakes. Your reader has to feel that one more mistake will result in disaster for the protagonist. A lot of times that high stakes is in a rom-com, it's when you might lose the crush or whatever. In action movies, it's usually, oh my god, are they gonna die? Or in a heist movie, it's the high stakes are they about to get caught? Your reader has to believe that if one more thing happens, if someone else drops the ball, all hell is gonna break loose. Then you have your challenges and growth. By the end, the protagonist needs to have grown as a person by overcoming a myriad of obstacles. So obviously your different beats and your different your different plot points are going to lead up to this moment. Your protagonist should grow a little bit. Nobody wants to read a book about a protagonist that doesn't learn anything. Okay, some people do, but it's really frustrating. You go through all this stuff and you're still the same person. Okay. And then you have your solution, of course, in the resolution. All trials and lessons that your character has endured have helped them solve the problem. Star Wars follows this structure. Spoilers for Star Wars, the first one, A New Hope. Act 1, Luke decides to follow Ben, fight for the rebellion, and rescue the princess. Act 2, which is about 40 minutes in, Luke finds the princess, loses Ben, and escapes the Death Star. Act 3, Luke blows up the Death Star and saves the rebellion. Yay! Another really good example is one of my favorite books, Suzanne Collins' best-selling young adult trilogy, The Hunger Games, uses 3-act structure in the first one. Act 1 is the setup. We meet Katniss, look around her district a little bit, see what life is like. We learn about the oppressive government that controls the capital. We learn about Katniss's family, that her father died in the mines, that her sister Prim is her favorite person in the world. And then we learn about Katniss is very protective of her younger sister, which is going to be very important with the inciting incident. We want to try to foreshadow what's going to lead to the inciting incident in those first chapters. It's going to really help. Katniss is really protective of her younger sister, and she would do anything from her, including put her name in the reaping cup several times so that way her sister doesn't have to. Then we have the inciting incident. This is where everything changes. Prim's name is called for the reaping, and Katniss volunteers to go in her place. That is the inciting incident. That is when everything changes and her life basically gets turned upside down. Then you have Act 2. That's prepping for the Hunger Games. The Hunger Games happen, then the climax is they get down to the last 3 contestants for the Hunger Games. Then Act 3 happens. Peeta and Katniss are the only ones left. They just had the rules changed on them, and they will not let each other die. They end up working their way around and changing the game, literally. Quickly, let's just put it all together. So there are generally 4 main ways to structure your story. Sometimes they have different names, but it's all essentially the same. 3-act structure, most common in Hollywood, uses Save the Cat. Each structure includes these different things. You have the setup, the inciting incident, the character growth, a plot twist or midpoint reversal, rising action or build-up, the climax or confrontation, falling action, and resolution. How do you pick which one to use? Think about what kind of story you want to tell. Like I was saying, different stories need to be told in different ways, and that's completely fine. If you're writing a mystery, I would highly suggest a 5-act structure. If you're writing a rom-com, I would suggest 3-act structure. If you're writing a musical, 2-act structure might work best for you. It's all about how you want to tell your story and how quickly you want to go through it. You want to think about why you are writing the story and how you want to unfold all those details. So that's all I got for you today. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and drop some comments down below of some other examples of different plot structures or different stories that use the plot structures that I talk about in this video. If you enjoyed this one, please hit that subscribe button. I post new videos 1 to 2 times a week. And of course, happy writing!